No, that wasn't me. Dear. Twitch has started already. I'm just waiting while my stream catches up. Yeah, the kit, I think you... Oh, we're going to get the adverts. Okay. Twitch. You've just disconnected me. Now you play adverts. Anyone would think that they weren't making enough money, so they disconnect people just to get another set of adverts. But that's me being cynical. Of course, you've got ad blocker, you're not watching that, but anyway. Yeah, the Scarlet Kit, if I remember, uses dual XLR and line inputs, and it has 2 of them. As good as any. I'm trying to think what the microphone that he uses reminds me of something, but it's a stood-up microphone. I did take a look at it. Yeah, page money takes your choice. Right. I think those trees need to be made a bit darker because I'm going to darken the background down a bit, and if I do that, they won't stand out. Well, the LED's performing tonight anyway. So I'm going to make these yeah. I'm going... Did I use the other pen for this? I probably did. Okay. I'm going to say, keep saying okay until I get my brain back in gear. Well, with Twitch disconnected me and taking my desk apart just then, my brain is a bit completely out of whatever it was I was thinking about at the time. I did send you a PM, by the way, with a link to that thingy. When I eventually read enough of it and sorted it out, Norway was available signed but not tracked in country anyway. But I'm guessing it was for signed and tracked. It was probably Parcel Force, because their prices, Parcel Force worldwide, their prices were silly. But I did send you a link to it. Seemed really weird, sort of. Sweden, was it Sweden? The next 2 countries over, anyway, from Norway. They're available, tracked and signed, but. So I'm just making this, well, not making it as dark as I possibly can. I am darkening it down. I'm about to try and darken the background down. And so when I go over these, I kind of don't want them to disappear. So I can do that by making them darker than the background. Probably would have been quicker to actually get out the other pen. quite sure how much more of this there is to do, to be honest. We'll see. I've got a bit of tidying up to do, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do for grass wise or stuff around here. I do need to sort of do something in the foreground sort of for the grass, but I might just sort of almost do a stylized version that is just a sort of few things. Okay, now let's apply some heat to the canopies of these trees. Just sort of random fluffy bits really, more than anything else. It's not nothing detailed. I'm kind of not really intended to be looking at them, they're just a bit of background. I hate to use the word sort of fluff, but they're there just to sort of make you not concentrate on the background. But they are just sort of a random detail which if you do look at it you go, oh, that's not bad. Right. Now Twitch won't connect me to my own chat by the looks of it. Still, we shall see what's going to happen. Right, I'm now going to try a different shader. This is going to be fun because I haven't used this one a great deal. So I don't quite know how it's going to react. Interesting. Need a bit more heat on it. Graya, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Theme Hospital, you too. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good evening. Okay, I probably want to come up to about here and then fade it out a little bit more. I think this wants to be a little bit darker, but so I'm just going to go up to about there, I think. Right. Getting the heat right is what takes a while when you're learning these things. Doesn't go too bad, Graham. Thank you very much. Now that I put my desk back together. Kind of been a little bit of an odd day. especially after the stream last night. I was trying to get my email to work. It wouldn't work properly. I came home tonight expecting to have to completely reset it up, and hey presto, it worked first time. So then I was kind of left with, now what do I do? Because I kind of expect it to do that. You've been out tile shopping. I've got that to do. Well, I've got to do it for 3 bathrooms. But it won't necessarily be actual shopping. It'll be going in, oh, well, that looks nice, and that looks nice, and can we afford that? Tile shopping, carpet shopping, all sorts of shopping to be done. I'm trying to do is work out a heat on this there. I can sort of move it at a reasonable pace. And by reasonable I mean roughly about what I'm doing here. So it heats up fast enough but not too fast. Now doing around the giraffe is going to be a little bit interesting. We shall see how that goes. Come on, wood. Don't play up. Three different shades of white. Ooh, that sounds like you're actually going to spend more time wondering whether they are, or you should have got them all the same. Not something my wife would have let anybody get away with, is 3 different shades of white. This tool isn't quite as nice as I was hoping it would be. For doing large areas. They've been quite wide. I was expecting it to work quite nicely as a sort of a broad brush. Whereas it's not quite reacting like that. Oh well, maybe I'm just not able to use it properly yet. So. What would be really nice for pyrography, I think, is a temperature controlled tip. That way it would maintain its heat. That's darker on this side than I thought it was. Okay. It's around about now that you get tempted to turn the heat right up, and then disaster happens. I can sometimes start to become a little bit impatient around here when I'm doing things like large areas like this. also kind of odd. One side of this nib is heating up more than the other. So this top of the edge of the U is hotter than the bottom edge. Don't quite understand that, unless of course the resistance of that area is just a little bit higher than elsewhere, but so this stream is actually going to be a lot of just background filling, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid. I mean, that's part of the craft. In this particular case, you know, sometimes you have to do things like that, and it's just a plain boring background, and it takes ages to fill in. And whilst I am sort of like tempted to turn the heat up a little bit, and I might do a little bit, I have to then watch for the fact that the tip heats up when you're not on the wood, and you make black marks when you put it down, and you start having to take care over things like that. So So this is intended to represent, if you like, a sunset. The sky is getting rather dark around there on the horizon. It's like there's a lot of Sheffield appears in a lot of places internationally, especially in places where they make steel. That way they can write on "Made in Sheffield" and or Sheffield steel, and then you just don't see the little bit in tiny writing that says India or China, Sheffield, China. Because of course well, relatively speaking, worldwide, Sheffield in the UK used to be quite world renowned for things like steel, stainless steel especially, cutlery and things like that. I'm just thinking then, I wonder for the people on the stream here, just quite how many people think of the stereotype of Canada. You know, the snow and mountains. As opposed to the fact that you can get extremely warm and things like that, and it's just like other places, just not as many people in it. There's a junior downstairs who wants to go out through our front door, so he's busy asking. And well, he might be being picked up on the microphone, but you probably can't hear him. Thinking maple syrup. Yeah, that's true, maple syrup. Well, the interesting thing is, of course, you know what maple syrup is, don't you? I'm guessing Graya does, obviously, but Theme Hospital, which is in some ways quite relevant to the stream, because of course maple syrup is the sap from, I don't know if it is meant to be from maple trees or just any tree of sufficient sweetness, but tapped and then cooked, and then it goes brown or golden colour, which of course is almost exactly what we're doing here. We're kind of extracting the sap or the resin out of the fibres, cooking it, and it's laying on the surface as a golden colour. So it's relatively relevant. Now then, when I do this over here, they're going to disappear. So I'm going to swap pens. So let's turn that down, switch pens over here. So I'm going to reinforce those trees. Yeah, indeed. Now then, why do I not have maybe that is, it is hot, yeah. Well, maybe I ought to get some maple wood and do it then, and then maybe it would. I don't think I've ever actually had any maple syrup. I know it's supposed to be nice and sweet, and I wonder, I was going to say, what I sometimes wonder is, like with maple syrup, who on earth first thought of tapping a tree? I suppose it might have done when they'd sawn a tree, but thought of cooking it and then eating it. Yes. Silver birch makes good wine. Oh, okay. I mean, there's a in sap from any tree. There's a lot of sugar because, of course, sugar. The sugars, in quotes, are obviously what feed the tree. So that, I mean, that's what it's transporting. That's what the sap's all about. But so it kind of doesn't surprise me that tree sap is both edible and sweet, or I suppose if something's sweet, you can make wine out of it because the sugars ferment. And the other thought that just crossed my mind then is, of course, the one tree I know where you probably wouldn't want to do that is the rubber tree. Now I'm trying to dabbing this down because I actually don't want to run it too hard down because it'll actually create a dimple. I don't really want to create a dimple in the background here. In terms of, and it'll get wider as well if I do that. I want these trunks to be quite thin. I'm kind of guessing somebody would have, maybe they'd have been raw at some point, maybe, and somebody may have cooked a chicken that was about to lay an egg, and the egg therefore got cooked, and came from that. Maybe, I don't know. But it is just sort of odd, isn't it? How things like that. I mean, things like root vegetables and fruit, you can sort of understand, but some of the odd things like that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose things like maple syrup, for example. You could kind of imagine somebody who's been chopping wood. So there's a lot, early spring wood. There's a lot of sap on it. They put it on the, maybe put it on the fire or something like that, or they pick up a, they've put wood onto a fire and they've picked up a branch that where the sap, to move the fire around, if you like, where the sap has come out. It's been on the surface, it's had some cooking, it's been on the fingers, and they've just licked the fingers because they're sticky or something, and gone, hey, that's nice. I don't know, Graia, to be honest. I mean, our nearest thing syrup-wise, I suppose, is golden syrup, which is just a sugar derivative, white sugar derivative of molasses. So similar sort of idea again, melted sugar really. I mean, maple syrup, I guess, is somewhat similar, but that's kind of the nearest that I know about, and I'm sure you can get maple syrup or potentially fake maple syrup, I don't know, over here. Never actually really looked for it. So I'm now trying to remember golden syrup over here. I'm trying to think. It's. I know it's got another name. I always used to call it something else. Not tree. I don't think it was. No, it's not treacle. But I'm sure I used to call it something else. Because like golden syrup's kind of like its official name and also Sunday name. And I'm trying to think now what I used to call it. Okay. But I mean, Wikipedia, Theme Hospital, same thing. Is kind of, why did somebody think it was a good thing to put in, on venison, to cook venison in? Things, maybe cook venison in mud. I can kind of understand, sort of. Or wrapped in leaves, as as it's done in some countries, but. Surrounding it by or coating it in the sap of a tree. Treacle. Yeah, kind of. That's sort of. But I was kind of wondering where I was thinking of the dark stuff when I said that. So, like treacle. Yeah, maybe it's just treacle. It's actually a long time since I've had any. And of course, now what I'll probably do next time I go to the supermarket, I'll be thinking, treacle. Actually, we might have a jar, tin. Green tins. Come in, green tins. Lions, golden syrup. I've seen a couple of videos. In fact, one of the people that I follow on YouTube is Canadian, and one of the videos he did was making maple syrup, tapping the tree and making maple syrup. So yeah, it takes a lot to make a little. Oh, I'm thinking back then, Graya, they probably had more to do than start experimenting with food. Mind you, it'd have to be a long time ago, I guess, but mind you, there again, if Wikipedia's right, then it's actually not that old, isn't maple syrup? Relatively speaking. And I mean, unless you're talking about, it sounds like it's not talking about sort of the ancient people of Canada or whatever country. It's talking about sort of the Western people that were there, so not necessarily that long ago. Yeah, although there are some fruits and things that animals eat that aren't, but I suppose you learn that very quickly, don't you, I guess. We've got, I can't remember what the bush is we've got around here, lovely little tiny red fruits on it, if you like. Kind of look like, well, they are berries, red berries, and of course I understand them to be quite poisonous, but the birds eat them all the time. And of course, but they're oak leaf wine. Yeah. Never tried it. Sounds like you've maybe some experience of unusual alcoholic beverages, Eddie Fall Guy. Oak leaf wine. Yeah. Fermenting leaves. Wonder if that, well, I don't know, I wonder if that came from things like teas, perhaps. Or mind you, it might be even older than that. Just bear with me a second, guys. Computer support required. And there. Computer support problem finished. It was just simply a full screen Internet Explorer on 8.1, which of course on the Metro interface has got no buttons or anything until you go up to the top right hand corner and just press the big red X. Lots of people now checking out unusual foods. And wines and things. Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if any of it came from teas, perhaps. You know, and I guess things like leaves and stuff like that would be self-fermenting as well, given that they probably had mould and stuff on them. That's another thing I've never had is truffles, but there again I kind of don't really understand what a truffle is, to be honest. But Aboriginal people, what, making your wine? Or something else? Well, if you were fermenting, you probably tried any distilling then with potatoes? I made some celery wine once, which was absolutely, because I actually like a sweet wine, which was absolutely superb. But I'd only made I actually grown the celery as well. It only made 4 bottles of it, and they were kind of the best 4 bottles of wine I ever made, and couldn't do it again, which was a real pity, because well, for me it was I could actually drink the stuff, so it was lovely wine, and I was really disappointed I couldn't do it again. Tried brewing things like beers in the past as well, but to be honest, it kind of was too much trouble. I've never known that. I just thought my dad was doing the brewing, and I just kind of did some alongside. So I wasn't particularly a thing. I mean, it's kind of weird you can't sell alcohol, but you can drink it. It's not illegal to drink it, it's illegal to sell it. And things like that, some weird stuff. Fungi. Okay. I sort of was I thought they were sort of semi-underground. They always looked a bit like a puffed out root or something, but okay. Of course, since distillation, I think require, is home distillation is somewhat potentially illegal, is it, and requires you to notify the VAT man and things like that. Then maybe it's not the sort of thing to be, I guess, discussed. Not that I'm saying anything, of course. It's actually things like the Scottish whisky industry or the Irish one. I've seen a couple of programs over time about the tricks and things and the secrets that the distilleries used to do to sort of avoid paying tax on the spirit that they distilled, and the sort of tricks they had to siphon it off without it being seen to the taxman, the Inland Revenue. I don't know about dangerous really, because the alcohol boils off at not much different to. In fact, I think it boils off before water does, so it's a relatively low temperature. So it's really just a case of then taking the vapour through. I mean, it's not a hard process, taking the vapour out through a cooling bath. So down through a pipe and then cooling the outside of the pipe, and sometimes just open air can do that, and then it sort of drips out at the bottom. The hard bit about it is maintaining the right temperature so you don't start getting water mixed in with it and things like that. So I don't know about although I suppose if you start drinking the stuff, and if you don't, that's why they use copper and things like that, because it doesn't react with the vessel that it's in. I think you can have sort of dangerous compounds created when the vapour starts mixing with certain metals and things. But yeah, yes, it is, as AD says. Yeah, you can literally brew hundreds of gallons of stuff, but you can't distill anything. I don't quite know why. Well, I don't know at all why or the wherefores of that. It does seem somewhat daft, really. I mean, I guess. Well, I'm guessing. Literally, I'm guessing. But sort of beers and things have been sort of the drink of the masses for a long time, because beer is naturally, I won't say naturally good for you from that point of view, but it's naturally clean, doesn't contain bacteria and stuff, whereas water can quite easily. The alcohol in the beer kills off a lot of bugs, so it's relatively safe to drink compared with water in some places, especially sort of in as you go back in time, and that may be why it's become part of the thing that everybody can do, but distillation is something brand new. I actually, well, I don't know whether to be licensed, but certainly it requires some interaction with Inland Revenue, and they get involved to make sure you're not siphoning it off, and it may just be literally a tax thing. So it's illegal because they want to collect the taxes. Yeah, well, it's a big kettle with a tube coming off the top, really, more than anything else, and generally. You just cool it. It doesn't even have to be water, it can be air cooled. And when you see pictures of them, it's usually a big coil, and that's mainly because it takes up less space. But yeah, they are relatively easy to do. Doesn't even have to be copper or anything like that. You know, it's one way of making distilled water, for example. Is literally that. You know, you just boil water and take it through a cooling pipe, and you get distilled water at the bottom end of it. And again, part of the trick is not to overheat the water, so you start getting impurities driven into the vapor. But okay, Google knows a lot of things. There's always an interesting argument over what's personal use, though. If you ever watch any of the you know, the real on reality television, where they do things like the customs and excise at borders and things like that, there's always a lot of discussion over, you know, somebody like in the UK, for example, you can import more or less as many cigarettes and drink from Europe as you like, provided it's for personal use. And that is for you to drink yourself, not to give away, not to sell, not buying it for anybody else, but for personal use. And then when you see these programs, and there'll be people coming in with 3 ginormous cases, and they've got about 15,000 cigarettes, and they go, it's for personal use. It's kind of like, if you smoke 300 a day, you've got enough for 10 years. Not quite. It doesn't sound like personal use. Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I guess the that the distilleries who do it, there's a heck of a lot of technological know-how. I don't mean technology as in electronics and stuff like that, but you know, the art of distilling and the methodologies that they use. I can imagine it is a real art and science, and the guys that can do it and do it right, are worth a lot of money. It is a fine line, yeah. I actually like watching that sort of program, and sometimes the stories or the way in which people try and say, I stopped, things like, it's for personal use, but I stopped smoking a year ago. Or I mean, if somebody brings in 15,000 cigarettes and they go, it's for personal use, and you get things like the custom. I think I saw one program where the customs people kept them in a room for, I'll make it up, like 15 hours, shall we say, and during that whole time, this person who claimed to sort of smoke 300 cigarettes a day or something never asked to have a cigarette. And it's kind of like the customs officer outside going, this bloke doesn't smoke, and would you like a cigarette, sir? And no, I'm okay, thank you. But you smoke 300 a day. But yeah. Yeah, it's customs. I mean, they treat it as avoiding paying taxes and avoid customs avoidance. So, but the VAT man, the tax man, likes his money. They don't like people avoiding it. So I'm now using that pen. So we'll go back up to there. So now we see whether me doing these trees like this is going to survive me doing the background. I love actually a lot of those. I don't particularly like things like Big Brother reality TV type things. but I do like watching reality TV where you'll get, I don't know, the police force, for example, or your customs and excise, airport, this sort of thing. SE rescue, mountain rescue. I do like watching, and that's just the ones I can think of. You know, these programs where you're following somebody doing their job, and not necessarily sort of what you might consider to be the exciting ones like that. I mean, it could. I think they've had sort of. I've seen programs where it might be a milk delivery person or something like that, you know, and it's just fascinating. I find it fascinating to see how other people do their different jobs. I guess it's partly, you know, leading on from the fact that I like trying many crafts. I'm not about to go out and try to be a you know, somebody who paints white lines in the road or something, but it's kind of fascinating the way in which they have to do it and the problems that they have to go through, you know, and things like that. Traffic wardens. The way people treat traffic wardens. Of course, they're only doing the job that they've been told to do or paid to do. And of course, the only people that complain about them are the ones who are doing something they shouldn't be doing. Because I always find it, well, I think there was one in London. They have things called red routes, and things like no parking restrictions on red routes. In the UK you have double yellow lines, which means no parking, but on red routes it's in London especially it's double red lines, which I think basically means that they'll tow the vehicle away as soon as they see it, and you get people sort of shouting and screaming about them towing a vehicle away, and you know they know that they're not supposed to park there, and it's kind of like the red to allow emergency vehicles through, and it's kind of like these would be the first people that would be shouting and screaming that something ought to be done if a fire engine couldn't get through because somebody had parked on one of these red routes, and it's kind of like, yeah. Yes, it's still, well, it's still on. Still going, and it is actually on at the moment. If you want, there's a thing. My wife watches it, but I got bored with it after about the third series. I mean, the first one was interesting. They had people, I won't say they're doing pyrography, but they had people doing things like making clay models, actually doing things, and I won't say useful things, but you know, sensible things. You know, like making a clay model, for example, to learn something and actually do it, and it wasn't just sort of, you know, dressing them up as bunnies and making them hop around the garden. Yeah, there's been a few of those. I think there's I've been seeing adverts for one with I can't remember what it is. They're about to follow them through follow the management of a hospital, I think, in the UK, which is a fairly sizable one. I mean, they keep on the adverts, they keep describing it as a hospital the size of a small city, just because of there's something like, and I'll make it up, something like 1,000 miles of corridor in the hospital, you know, if you add them all together and stuff like that. And yeah, it's interesting. I think they're interesting things. That's a heck of a change of subject, Graham, but thank you very much. Mind you, I guess we were talking about trees a little while ago, but yeah.